Hi, everybody. This is Eric. It's another good day of recovery. It's kind of back to fall. And so in doing so, I got this feeling to do kind of how to deal with catastrophic thinking. I have a lot of clients and people I know, and actually myself from time to time, have catastrophic thoughts. And so I thought we would do a real overview on how to attack such thoughts. Um, so welcome. I guess I could start up front by saying I'm a therapist who works with all this. So it's near and dear to my heart. I know what it is to have anxiety, and I know what it is to be free or from it for sure. I won't say I'm totally free because I don't think people totally get over anxiety like they never have another anxious thought. I think what happens is we build up such good coping mechanisms that we just don't have the same panic attacks or experience or anything like that. So there's a number of therapies I find useful, and they really do kind of overlap and intersect with each other. Um, it's one of those things that I don't know what I studied first. I studied neurolinguistic programming. So let's talk about that. Neurolinguistic programming was discovered by Richard Bandler and John Grender in University of California in Berkeley. And the linguistics part came from the field of linguistics and how our thoughts are in terms of the words we think. So if I said rose, most likely it triggers your brain into that state of thinking about a rose. If you're struggling with anxiety, notice the words that you hear inside your head or that you're tempted to think. And programming comes from the field of computer science. So after a while, if you do something over and over and over and over, the first times they were firing together, these neurons, but after a while, they begin to be like real patterns, Neurolinguistic programming, also known as NLP. It's very helpful. I trained people in it. I'm a master practitioner in it. I love that kind of idea. They have this idea that all behavior has a positive purpose. So it doesn't mean that it turns out positive, but it means that the intent is purposeful. It's hard for us as humans to imagine doing anything that's non-purposeful. So a person might have horrible thoughts that maybe loved ones are dead. And there may be, you would go, well, what's the purpose for that? The person goes, it does nothing for me. Nothing. It just terrorizes me. I think the kids are dead at school, and every day I'm thinking they're going to die. But if they slow down, ask themselves, what is the purpose? Like, why do this? And they often find that it's things like keeping kids safe, to be aware and protective. And they may need work learning what is in their control and what is outside their control. But if one is looking at transforming morbid thoughts into something more useful, like to enjoy life, to realize life is short, that the kids are going to die. I don't want to try to terrorize anybody, but that is a fact. All of us are going to die. So then what do we do with that? And we'll talk about other therapy that really goes down that path. And I'm just giving you a glimpse of this, but neurolinguistic programming also noticed that people's eye movements changed when they talked, that they're called eye accessing cues. So they may go, and if eyes looked up, that signified that they were very much visualizing something inside their head. So we'd ask someone who struggles with anxiety, how do you do that? Which is an odd question, but it's something they do. And often their eye movements will tell us. And so eyes that look up are visualizing something. Eyes that look horizontal are hearing something auditorily. And eyes that look down, they're feeling something. Now, some people just might feel something and they go, I don't know. I just feel like this impending doom, that there's something not good. Others would actually see people laying by the side of the road and dead and covered in blood. Or they might visualize themselves in a wheelchair, or see themselves as all alone. No one's going to love them, or they're never going to get married. And these visual images really do make a strong physical sensation for people. NLP, when a person looks at the positive intention and then notices that it's visual, they may do something called the swish technique, which would help them visualize that same catastrophic image in something black and white rather than color. They would ask the question, is it a moving picture or is it still? And they go, oh, wow, it's still. And so then if they made it moving, does that make it better? Or if it was a moving image, does making it still better? If it's a big, like, and people go, I never thought, well, it's like big. It's just, and I said, well, if you shrink it down to a postcard, they go, well, that's weird. I can do that. And it's not that big of a deal. And they actually feel better. So giving people the ability to, first of all, notice their thoughts and how they think about something makes all the world a difference. It's a very effective therapy. Let's take something more neutral and positive, like if you think of your last birthday, and maybe that was traumatic, and I'm sorry if it was bad, but if it was average or something fun, I would ask, how do you think about it? Do you see it? Do you not see anything, but you just hear comments or what people said? Or do you just feel like you had an experience? Most people will have some kind of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic experience. Yeah. Another thing to ask ourselves is, are you associated or disassociated in the scene? This means, are you seeing it through your own eyes as though you are seeing everybody die, or seeing the end of the world and you're seeing it through your own eyes? Or do you see a picture of Eric and the scene? Often we'll feel less traumatized when we are outside our body. But this isn't always the case. Some people go, I feel like I'm outside my body. And I say, well, then step inside. And they go, I didn't know I could do this, but just pretend you're inside your body. See what you're seeing that's catastrophic. And they go, oh, actually feel grounded. I feel like I just ruined it. Great. Panic attacks, often, now we're not talking about panic disorder tonight or today, but similar, if people feel worse being outside themselves, then have yourself step into it. If you actually feel worse feeling that, step outside. And that's why we use the phrase, I was beside myself. So yeah, we're going by quicker. There are more techniques associated with this, but stepping in and out of scene. Here's what's fun is, for fun, if you have a pleasant scene, like in your birthday experience, step into it. Really see the colors, the sounds, what you might be feeling. we don't usually do taste, but if you're tasting the cake or the treat you had for your birthday, re-experience it, and how you re-experience it triggers physiological, neurological sensations. Or you can go back to a vacation. So if I go back to a vacation this year, it was very warm, very hot. I'm getting glimpses of the little house we stayed in. I see colors, but it's more like snapshots. It's not like a movie. I can now picture this place we went to eat, and it was a long wait, but it was fun. It was warm. I can feel the sensations of sitting in these chairs, which were harder, which I'm not complaining. It's just, but the food was actually quite good, and I could probably retaste it. If I could only just retaste food and then not gain any weight, that would be a new fun thing. Maybe not, because when we're tempted by things, whether it's pornography or overeating or resentments, there's a good one. We could be visualizing these things and then getting body sensations. Okay. So there's another principle, making up words today, principle called meta. Meta in Greek means alongside of, it means many other things. But in NLP talk, meta means to step outside the situation, like disassociated. It's seeing it from a third person's point of view. So again, we use this a lot with, say, like you had experienced an argument, it was not a good situation. And if I say, okay, think of that argument you had with your loved one, and now I'd like you to step outside of that situation, and you see Eric, and you see Eric's loved one. Okay, so the farther you get away, and sometimes we do this in the room so that you're actually moving outside, and it's like, what would that Eric need? Well, when I'm out here, I'm more in my right mind. I'm more logical, maybe more spiritually connected, and say, well, he needs to calm down. Look at getting his needs better met other than this. And what is that other person needs? Well, they're probably frightened because Eric's coming on too strong. What do they need? And then what do they need as a couple or as a family unit? So we use that a lot. It's called switching perceptual positions. We might have done a video on this, maybe not. But if we use meta for catastrophic thinking, I think it works well. And this is how it goes. It's kind of like if you're starting to get bad thoughts, we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about them kind of on purpose. We kind of know what they are, but let's talk about some of them. Say like you're afraid of illness, afraid that someone's going to die, or that you're the cause of their illness. Maybe you didn't wash your hands clean enough. You made food and half the people you made the food for get really sick. Or you're driving and you realize, because you're in touch with reality, that anything could happen while driving, that someone could run in front of your car, no fault of your own, but you kill them and then they go, well, to the morgue. That sounds horrible. And you go to jail. Why? Because of manslaughter. So your life has changed. So then should you never drive just in case that should happen? Well, my choice is to still drive, but that's a catastrophic thought. Okay. Catastrophe. Catastrophe also could be not so physical, life and death, but like losing one's job, being publicly embarrassed to the point where you would just be embarrassed and you can never see these people again. Catastrophizing is interesting. It's this idea that we take something and make a mountain out of a molehill. So say like a boss says, hey, Eric, we need to speak with you. How was Monday? Monday sounds good, and today's Friday. So I have to then worry all weekend long. Why do they want to talk to me? And it starts off subtle. It's like maybe my job performance isn't good. Maybe they're going to fire me. If I lose my job, I just can't imagine having to go look for another one. And then your breathing shifts. You start to not feel good. And you're assuming the worst. And then it goes on and on. It could end up where you're holding a cardboard sign by the side of the road, or you're in a wheelchair, or whatever. So that's catastrophizing. So now that we've kind of identified that, I think half of the battle is to know you're doing it. Just know that that's what's happening. Oh, this is catastrophizing. So that's meta. That's when you're, that's when you're able to go, hey, calm down, chill. It's okay. You're just catastrophizing, and that's what's making this awful. And you go, oh, okay, thank you. Gosh, now I know to just tone this down, and sometimes to just say, stop. I'm not doing this. Or what's the positive purpose for this? To not lose my job. To have a conversation with oneself or prayer to God and say, you know, what's in my control, what's not in my control. And we'll go through some other questions that are another part of other types of psychology, but that you'll see kind of weak. So the idea of going meta to it is a really good tool here. Cognitive behavioral therapy. This might have been one of the first types of treatments that involved our thoughts will affect how we feel. And again, if I'm thinking thoughts like, oh, I feel a little soreness in my calf. I wonder if it's a, this is funny. I shouldn't laugh. I wonder if that's a blood clot. Blood clots have been just seeming beyond the increase since COVID and vaccines. And oh my gosh, if I had a stroke, what would that be like? And what would I do? And how would people have the money, et cetera, in my family, et cetera? It just goes on. Okay, so cognitive behavioral therapy has a similar thing going on that says stop, you know, reflect and look at what thoughts you're thinking, and that's going to produce some anxiety. So are these all or nothing thoughts? Is it distortion of reality? Is it getting farther and farther from reality? You know, a twinge of pain in one's calf could mean many things, many, many things. It could be from gardening. It could be from lack of potassium. Who knows? But catastrophic thoughts, they often start with some kind of truth to it. That, yeah, in theory, it could be that. So a book I use called Mind Over Mood. We've talked about this before. Mind Over Mood. It's actually quite a useful book. This is the second edition, but you fill things out. And and I mean this in a positive way, the tedious act of filling this out over and over and over, you train your mind to think differently. It's really that simple. Is it tedious going to the golf range and swinging, you know, the golf swing over and over and over and over and over? Not if you want to be really good at it. And pretty soon you get muscle memory. So I believe in that. I will confess, as a therapist, I like to work faster, and Often I just introduce the people to the concepts rather than go through the whole book. But if people really practice it every day, your brain will learn how to not catastrophize. So I will describe what's in the book kind of briefly. Say like it's the blood clot idea. So you have an event. The event is pain in calf. So you put that there. The feeling, anxiety, pain, and some kind of maybe panic. And so you chart it, you rate, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, fear is probably an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. Pain is actually maybe a 3, and panic maybe 1. Okay, so that's one way to do this. The other way is to use percentages. It's like 80% pain, or not pain, 80% fear, 20% panic, and 10% panic, 10% pain. Now, by the way, when people do this, it doesn't need to add up to 100%. But it's a fun thing. Once you start to label it, you're actually going meta to it, and you're starting to step outside it. The next brilliant thing in CBT is you ask what thought is generating this feeling, and you write the thoughts out. One thought is, I'm having a stroke. Another one is, I'm dying. Another one might be, I'm not only having a stroke, but I'm now going to be in a wheelchair, or I'm not going to be able to work. I might die. Okay, you get the idea. You write them out until you kind of feel like that's enough, and you circle the hot thought. What thought generates the most discomfort for you? Now, what's brilliant about this is it helps you analyze the thoughts. Maybe you have 5 thoughts, and this is the one that bothers you the most. And you go, it gives you a sense of control over it. Like for some, it's not dying. It's being in a wheelchair. For some, it's dying, or what would people think of me? It's very interesting, these. So to move this in a light way, because that's my goal tonight. The next level is, the next column is, what evidence supports this thought? Well, I am having pain. I am kind of having a fear sensation. So maybe it means something. Maybe this is different than just a normal pain. And evidence says there seems to be a lot of blood clots. Now, it may not be accurate evidence, but there could be a lot of people around you that seem to be having these blood clot things, strokes and stuff. So that's the evidence that's generating that painful anxiety. Mind you, I haven't even had the stroke. This is just the pain in the calf, but it's the thoughts of future that's causing me the problem. So then you're trying to watch TV or do something fun, and you have in the back of your mind this catastrophic thought that you're having a stroke. So what is the evidence? So we did the evidence that supports the belief. Now this is the fun part. What evidence doesn't support it? Well, I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pains in calves to the point where it's not a big deal. 2, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. My overactive brain is probably catastrophizing because I didn't get good sleep. 3, I'm not in the best health, but I'm not really in the highest category for stroke or blood clots. 4, if you get accurate information, you realize, and I'm not giving medical advice, I'm not a doctor, but blood clots when you're in your legs. It's painful enough you can't stand. Second of all, it's kind of warm, what I've heard, to the touch. And you would see something. It would be, and if a person looks at their leg and go, well, that's not happening, then you can probably say it's probably not a blood clot. Okay. So then you end up with the next column, which is a new feeling. Well, now the anxiety is down, the fear was down to like a 2. And the thought of dying and having a stroke is probably down to a 0. And then what's a more realistic thought is how you end it. So catastrophic thoughts, and yeah, I would, people that have catastrophic thoughts often have anxiety, often have panic disorder. So it behooves us that suffer to go get some help to really retrain our brains how to do that. Okay. So evidence that supports the thought, and evidence does not support the thought. Another tool I like is called the emotional measuring stick. I used to call it the emotional yardstick, but the reality is it's on a scale of 1 to 10. So if I'm having catastrophic thoughts, like I feel anxiety about giving a speech, everybody's laughing at me, say like I'm a student, it's not going to turn out well. In fact, let's make this more catastrophic. I'm going to pee or poop my pants right there. People are going to laugh at me. I'll never be able to go, or vomit. That's actually more likely. I'm going to vomit right there. I'll be teased the rest of my life in the school year. So then when I gently ask, how would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10? They go, this is like a 7, an 8. It's like, okay. Now this sounds funny because it looks like I'm using catastrophic thinking on itself. But I said, if you were to get cancer, where would you rate that? Or to really have something worse, like you flunked out of school because it was such a bad speech. They go, well, it's not a 7 or an 8 now. That would be higher, and this pushes this lower. So it's this idea that we tend to overrate our thoughts as catastrophic. And a big stinking deal when it comes to dealing with anxiety is this idea of revaluing the thought. In fact, I didn't list it tonight, but you are not your brain. If you bear with me, I'm going to grab the book. Yeah, you are not your brain talks a lot about revaluing thoughts. And often fearful thoughts that are catastrophic, it's like horrible. Like we need to go run for our lives. By the way, have you noticed that a lot of things online are designed to try to make you run for your life? Yeah, I laugh a lot. I don't laugh with my clients unless they're better now. But when they're coming in, I'm not laughing at these things because I understand when you're embedded in it, you really believe it's real. But I laugh because think of all the ads. How many of us have seen ads that says, if you eat this food, never eat this food again if you want to keep your liver? It's like, are you kidding me? That's catastrophic advertisements. And some health people that I kind of actually liked and trusted, now I won't watch them. Not interested, because their credibility goes way down when they start using tactics of, and this, my son pointed this out, when your eyes are open and, as the clickbait, and it says, quick, you're going to get diabetes if you do this. Or, toenail fungus can give you, catastrophic. It's like they're just manipulating us. Yeah. So at that point, I think they've lost some credibility. Anyway, that's just my little rant there. So think about it this way. The olden days when they had these car alarms that were new, and a leaf would fall down and land on it. An alarm, 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 alarm. And we'd all run to our cars. Oh no, someone's stealing it. We have all learned that when you hear a car alarm go off, I hate to say this, in my mind, the last thing I'm thinking is someone's out there stealing something. The first thing in my mind is that I bet it just went off because someone accidentally didn't push the button right, or leaves now can fall on cars, but they were so sensitive that you could just look at it and it would go off. That's what catastrophic thinking's like. It just, a person's poor nervous system is so sensitized that everything feels catastrophic. Yeah. So to revalue it is key. Let's look at I think we'll go to ACT therapy. Now, I will confess I know less about ACT therapy, but this is a book, Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. Stephen Hayes, he's the developer of it. You've heard of mindfulness. Mindfulness is pretty cool stuff. Excuse me. It's about staying in the moment. And I don't know why it's called mindful, because it makes me think I'm in my mind. I would call it being in your body, being in the moment, not thinking so much. You know, feeling the texture of clothing and the temperature of the room and noticing the lights around you. Being present with someone rather than thinking. So I think mindful means to be attentive, but some of us are trapped in our minds. I did have a cute little waiting room book that said, "My mind is out to get me." There's a lot of truth to that. So this idea is kind of a combination of accept that what you're fearful of could actually come true. It's like, fine, if you have a blood clot because it's just there, okay, accept that it's there. And really experience the feeling. Don't run from it, because worry is a strange, weird shield. It's not really putting you in the moment. It's making you think about something in the future. And it's very non-productive. And it's farther away from actually the experience. You're generating your own body sensations from it. So training your brain and your mind and body to go into the moment sometimes just relieves anxiety. How would it work in real life? I think if people were getting a shot and they were really catastrophizing, saying like a little child, it's like a pat on the shoulder saying, look, you're going to feel a little something. But you can do it, and you don't have to avoid it. And you can relax through it, and you can be proud afterwards. What happens is that's better than fighting it, and then tensing up and then getting it. And it's a bad experience. And the experience in your head was worse than what you actually got. So there's this aspect that we make things worse than they are. Have you heard that phrase? It's because our experience is what kind of brings on suffering, not the actual event or the reality. It's how I personally experience this. So I can make things worse by my own experience. So say like I'm worried about the talk with my boss all weekend. If I accept that maybe it is a conversation about my termination with the company, I can live with that. I'm going to be okay with that. I'll find another job. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to try to, meaning fight the thought that that could happen, or fight the possibility that that could happen. I'll surrender and let go, control, and just deal with that then. It might also involve being in the moment now so that I can enjoy the weekend with my family rather than use up life energy to worry about something that actually hasn't happened. So worry, in a strange way, is a misguided attempt to protect ourselves, but often it takes away from the experience of what we want, what we call life. So workbooks like that would be interesting. Radical acceptance is an idea that just totally radically accept what's happening. And if it was to happen, just let it fully happen and you'll be okay with that. So Claire Weeks, who I've mentioned before with anxiety and panic, she had that idea, just feel the anxiety. You're a living human being. It's okay. You will not die from this. You will feel it fully. Or if you're grieving the loss of a loved one, don't fight it. Just let yourself feel that and to deal with that. Catastrophic thinking is irrational thoughts. So a lot of the therapies we mentioned so far are about letting go of it and translating into something more productive and analyzing, kind of poking holes, seeing that in NLP talk, it's there to kind of protect us and to go meta to it. And what do I need? CBT is much more about how do we look at what's realistic or not. But this would be just embrace the fact that I'm having a catastrophic thought for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, I want to worry about the possible job loss or the possible blood clot or something like that. It sounds very different because if you're accepting that, okay, I can do that. I guess if I want to worry about it, just do it. This kind of is that old idea. Just go ahead and worry about it. Let yourself really feel the experience of worry instead of take 10 hours trying not to do it. Just go ahead and do it. Get it out of your system. Write it out. Write out everything and then put it in a worry jar or a God jar and pray about it. There's some value to that. It's kind of like if you're pushing a car and you're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's not going to go. Well, then, okay, back up here. Let's get in front and push it backwards. And that's kind of what it feels like because we're often so trying to avoid the very thing we're afraid of that if we just accept it, it kind of loosens it. It's like, well, if I died from cancer or stroke, I would, I guess, adjust. How many other things in my life have I had to deal with where I just learned to adjust? I'm being mindful of time here. Try not to go too long. So here are some thoughts that I think are very interesting with ACT. Okay. And I like this one. And I was in therapy once, and the therapist, I was beginning to catastrophize. I forgot what it was, and see how effective it is. This was so funny. I'm just talking. He says, stop. No, stop. Don't do that. It's not useful. It's like, okay, He says, yeah, that's not helpful. Just don't do it. And I never thought I could just do that. But it's interesting. Is it useful to worry about blood clots in legs? Now, no. I mean, that makes it easier. Is it useful for me to worry about a possible talking with the boss? Well, not to the point of, holding a cardboard box and taking my stuff home. But might be useful to pray a prayer or to figure out what it was that I might have done wrong so that I would have some kind of defense. But yeah, it's not useful. A lot of time, if it feels useful to you, then try to look at what am I trying to accomplish? And then from there, try to repurpose it to something more useful. Sorry. Like for instance, say like I know I'm going to be let go because my job performance isn't what it should be. I need more sales. You know, maybe it's useful if I over the weekend look at a course or something and enroll in to improve my people skills, or to maybe apologize to someone. If the catastrophizing has us ending the relationship and we never speak to each other again, with just some other situation, like maybe calling and checking it out. Okay. It's not always wise to tell everybody everything, you know, because it could burden the relationship. But sometimes it just stops the thought. Is this thought true? And again, sometimes it's as simple as, is it true? No, this hasn't even happened yet. A lot of catastrophizing hasn't even happened yet. And I think we saw that during the pandemic and people responding as though something has happened. Now, there's nothing wrong, I think, with prayer and being mindful of future events, but overall, we're really encouraged to live in the moment. Let's see. Is this thought old? I love this one. Is this a repeating thought? How many blood clots have I had in my legs? That never came true. I never had a blood clot that turned true. Now, it doesn't mean I can't get one, but it's unlikely if I'm doing this again. And I use the phrase doing this again because it helps us to realize I'm allowing this or not. I'm allowing this in the door or not. The other thing is it from an old story? Is this something that happened in childhood? And that there could be some elements of truth to it. Say like I'm really afraid of being rejected and not loved, and everybody hates me and I'm alone. Well, if I did have a childhood that had some similarities, then it's like, you know, I'm just trying to prevent that from happening by being catastrophic. What's the positive purpose? To protect myself. But the reality is it's counterproductive. Okay. What do I get from buying into the story? And that might tie in with our last example as well. Buying into it helps me protect myself. Buying into it helps me if everybody's dead just from a simple trip to going to a department store and they're not back and it's a half an hour. What do I get from buying into this? Oh, this is probably what happens, is that they come back. I hug them and I'm crying. Oh, I'm so glad you're alive. And they go, what? What we get from it is the joy that they didn't die, and the joy that I didn't have a blood clot, and that I hug and kiss my boss. The joy that, oh, you just wanted to tell me that my work performance could improve, and there's other reasons for that. See, so it's really kind of self-rewarding by worrying that it rewards that we, because 99% of these catastrophic thoughts hardly ever come true. It's probably even like 0.001. I always wonder if someday something happens and it's like, I've been expecting this and I'm well prepared. You know, I think that's part of it. We want to be prepared. Does this thought help me take affection? Does this thought help me take effective action? No, no, no. If it was, it wouldn't be a catastrophic thought. It's different. If I'm having symptoms of a stroke, that's not a catastrophic thought, and I go run and take a baby aspirin, that's fine. We're talking about things where it's gone on for hours and it's not helping you take any action. It's not helping you sleep. It's kind of a bad habit. Are we going to trust this thought? And depending on your belief system about the spiritual world or not, we've talked about spiritual assaultive thoughts, but assaultive thoughts, it's like, should I even trust this thought? No, 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 because it hardly ever comes true. And what has my experience tells me, now this was a tricky one. Sometimes people's experience has been so broken and challenged, they really feel like this is it. But my experience as a person, say like health anxiety, and I have a number of people with that, and I had bits of it myself, is that 99% of any health thing that happened didn't happen. But 1 or 2 or maybe 5% did. And then I just had to deal with a colon surgery or other surgeries. And it's like, it was not fun at the time. There was some anxiety about it, but now I don't even think about it. When you have kind of emotional immune system from dealing with hardships, you begin to go, you know what, I guess I would just have to adjust and deal with being in a wheelchair, or, well, I'd probably use neuro feedback to help myself with a stroke if I have a stroke. So any thoughts or comments or anything about this? Yeah. Let's see here. I won't leave out dialectical behavior therapy. It does a nice job as well. Combination of cognitive behavioral mindfulness techniques. What they really use is this idea of a rational mind and emotional mind. I really shouldn't put verses there. It's not appropriate. But a rational mind is saying, you know, you're probably not having a blood clot. It's okay to not know why your leg hurts. And if it doesn't go away, then you can check into it, go to a doctor. If it goes away in an hour, then it's probably not a stroke, a blood clot. The emotional mind so feels like this is dangerous that it's really bad. The emotional mind does say everybody hates me, and I'm alone, and I'm afraid, and I'm so alone with my fears, and the family could die. I just get that feeling. And do families die? Yes, they can be killed in a car accident. Why shouldn't this happen to me? What made dialectical behavior therapy so effective was that Marsha Linehan, who herself actually had her own personal issues, which she overcame, which I think is brilliant. I love those stories. She was bold enough to ask the people who suffered, like, how are we failing you? What can we do to make things better? And all the people said, you know what? We don't feel like you really understand how hard life is, or how scared we are, or how angry we are, or how lonely we are, or unloved we are. So she thought, oh, dialectic, which is you embrace two sides of things. And that's why this works. You embrace. Sorry, it's been a long day, long week. Embrace both sides. And when you do so, it actually helps the emotional mind calm down, rather than just trying to beat. I don't want anybody to think their book, but it will just say beat, over the emotional head of someone with the book saying it's irrational. Stop it. Just stop it. You're not, no blood clot. Come on. That's stupid. You're always having a blood clot and you're always losing your job. And yeah, I'm tired of that. That does not help. And I guess I was using that because the people that she really was effective were people who were really suicidal a lot, felt so lonely, so bad, so not well, that the more that people use logic and cognitive behavioral therapy with them, the more invalidated they felt, which just fed the cycle of how bad they were. By embracing both sides, it actually kind of worked. It works really well. So well that some of these disorders people are afraid of, now it's like we know what to do. It should teach us as therapists and psychologists to be humble and to realize that what we know is only a little and that more can be disclosed later. So then the wise mind is kind of a combination of both, where we embrace these truths. So play around with all of these things. See what you gravitate towards. Yeah, so we have a friend, James Eddy, says, God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but power and of a sound mind. This is true. This is the spiritual component. And often we can use things we know to be true to hold on to during a difficult time. I was trying to look for a post, but during a hurricane of fear, anxiety, it's like, you know what? I'm probably not dying. God would be in control. And if he wants me to die, I guess I'll die. So, and that would be kind of a combination of ACT therapy and Christianity or a spiritual connection there. Being in this moment, and I love this prayer, God, be with me in this moment. Everything will work out if I'm connected with God. I like that this is a Bible verse that James Eddy brings up, is that a spirit of fear. So I think it's also helpful to be mindful that this is not just a material world, is my personal belief, that we live in. Our fears and anxieties are not just because we're in a bag of chemicals here, or electrical impulses, and we just kind of have been trained in this. No, there are actually times when things are worse and times are better. And it's not just poor sleep or better diet or all that fixes these things. It's also like we learn that I think sometimes, this sounds catastrophic, but I kind of believe it, that there is the spirit of fear being cranked up over the earth, and people, I think, are buying into it. And I think a lot is on the internet. And yeah, that why fear sells is because we've been gifted fear for self-preservation. So if I have a healthy fear of rattlesnakes, it helps me stay alive. If I had no concept of fear, I would probably get bitten and die. So there is a useful fear. Fear of death could be transformed into living our life prepared for the next life, depending on your belief system, as well as learning how to enjoy the moment we have rather than just ignoring death. So yeah, that might be a good video in the future, how to repurpose fear and to fear the more useful things. Like I want to be fearful of living a life that just is fear for 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah, if you can actually feel that and go, I'm not doing that. If there's something I want to avoid, and see, I've challenged people, fear is an avoiding problem, but it's okay to avoid rattlesnakes. It's okay to avoid this distorted thinking, you see. So how can we best by doing it? Well, through prayer and God's grace, but also maybe practicing some of these exercises. So you take care, everybody. You have a great day.